Good morning, guys.
Hey, Josh.
How ready are we today to take on the day? We feeling good?
Not
We
as well
feeling
as
tired?
not as well, not as well as I'd like to be.
Okay, okay, all right, I understand.
I
Um,
just finished that meeting that I told you about,
oh, you
so
did? Okay, cool, cool,
but I got up early to do the stuff, so I'm good. I
uh,
should be okay. I
good.
hope.
I did. I actually built my template for the trade of the day, so that's all set in Notion for myself as well. So I'm now I got to build the filters and all that. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Looking forward to documenting that and using my what I'm going to call my proprietary, probably going to be trademarked at some point. Action, location, participation, um, timing, access trigger,
Good.
ALPTAT, as I'm calling it right
If you're seeing movement and start descending,
So
just
Clever.
anyway, I guess I can jump in first. I'm seeing something cool, and this is interesting because we talked about it last night, and then it happened overnight. So I'll start at the very top, and that's that. Come on now, we I think had another failed breakout.
Share your screen, though. Don't forget to share.
Yes, I do need to share my screen. Thank you. There we go. All right. Had another failed breakout of this price channel. We're all the way back into it, much deeper now than before. So that's interesting. A couple other things to point out, and I don't know that I have. I'm not saying I know what this means, but this sell-off back into the channel was met with higher volume, and then the breakout was less, and then the balance area was more, and then the ensuing action was that we fell back into it. So
Mm.
that's to me that's indicative of what we were looking at yesterday, but couldn't really put our finger on. Is that the sell-off was sort of underway, um, and there were the absorption at the top, and the accumulation at the top was, at least for the YM, was in anticipation of this sell-off, and I suspected that happening last night, and there was a couple of reasons why, and this is what I wanted to point out. Remember yesterday in the balance range, we talked about how um, breaking out of the channel and balancing outside of it led to the move higher, and then or led to the move lower and then to the move higher, the intraday price channel. Well, it did that yesterday too. So when you see, it's a terrible color. Let me see if I can get a better one. When we saw this break through this channel and just start to balance here like this, it's really kind of I'm starting to see a lot of predictability in that. That's a predictable thing. That this is kind of an action, location, participation thing, and I saw it last night around 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock. Saw lots of selling and success. Delta or supply was expanding to the downside, and so was price. So I really expected this kind of move to happen. Um, so, all that to say, what I'm also seeing here in a little bit higher time frame is that we built a balance area, and then we've sort of worked our way through this balance area from before, which is about, I don't know, maybe 10 days composite. And now we're at the bottom of it. And there's one other thing I want to point out here about this is that we're very imbalanced to the downside as far as development value goes. So the likelihood, at least, as the theory goes, the likelihood is that we're going to continue expanding to the downside. So I say all that, and let me just go over the plans. Oh golly, Sierra chart. Let me just fix that. My ADD won't let me continue otherwise. There are basically three plans that I have for the day. The first one is that this new price channel holds. And let me show you one other thing. The top of that price channel is in green. There, the top of the daily price channel is in green. I know that's kind of like there's a lot of crap in here. In fact, I'll just get rid of some things that we
I
don't
can
need.
see it.
Um, so that's there, and so that tells you how far into it we are. So if we're going to reject that, then what I would expect us to do is break out of this channel, balance above it, and then continue higher. That's kind of what this gap, or excuse me, that's what this closed gap idea is. I think that's probably the least likely. The second least likely is that we gap and continue, but we find buyers somewhere down in this area here because we're already at -1 sigma. So we find buyers here and then we back up, we come back up to the top of this channel or somewhere in this neighborhood, and then we end up basically balancing in this range right here like that. So that'd look like open with a gap and continue, but the sellers find the buyers and then we're rejected right back up into this, and then ultimately what starts as a gap and continue day becomes a balance day as a result. And
Right.
then what I think is most likely, which again could connect to this one, that's just the way it would be, what might work out is that the price channel holds, so that we come up here, or we have a failed attempt to break out, and then right back down, and then that's when we find our buyers. And then this, this if this happens, if this action happens before the Globex close, then it's a fielder's choice. I'm not sure what would happen after that, if people will see that as such a great opportunity to buy that they will buy it, or if it's the prices just aren't cheap enough yet for them to take
Mm.
advantage. So the only one thing I did want to point out, and I saw this yesterday when I was going long, but there was a lot of selling right there at these lows, a ton of it. So the the only reason I bring that up is just because I think there was some indications yesterday that the short side was going to pay off, and I didn't really pay attention to these signals on the 30-minute time frame. I was looking more at the 1 minute and focusing on that. So I'm going to try and have a little bit more of a comprehensive view today as far as that goes. But those are my plans for today.
Okay. It looks good. It seems like you're taking a wide view of the potential of the full day. So I just want to ask you, like initially, we put in a short-term low here. Do you have a plan for like the first hour? I mean, is it going to be that you're going to try to buy that low if it comes back into it, or are you going to watch? Are you going to wait for something to develop in that bigger channel? Is that's
Oh,
what your near-term plan is?
I'm super glad you asked that because, yeah. So right now, my preference is to the short side of waiting for a pullback that would fail here and then roll over to the backside of the channel. I'm not going to buy down here. This is too scary for me, and nothing in my system. If you're still looking at this, nothing in my system supports me buying this unless we impulse in. So what I would need to see is, and this is a key marker right there for me, what I would want to see is an impulse in that essentially holds right here and does something like that. So otherwise I'm off the long side unless we pull up here like this and pull back to there like that, and then maybe. But it's going to be very difficult for me to get on the long side from a very cheap price standpoint or low risk standpoint based on what's happening here.
Okay.
The only thing that would really change that scenario and keep the risk low would be if we continued to balance here like this and then we had an obvious structure break, hold, imbalance, buyers step in, and then you see that push. Then I could see that, or a push down, we can't even make the low fail, and like that. That's the
Mhm.
only low risk buy that I see potentially shaping up. But I don't. My belief is that we're going to drift up here. Sellers are going to step in and slam it down. So I'm going to try and be part of that.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, I wanted to clarify that because it amounts to what I'm thinking about here too. So, this is the big picture, obviously, and I always like to start here. And the big picture is bullish. I mean, you can't deny that it is bullish. And I'm thinking the bigger picture is bullish until we break this point of control of the previous
Mm.
balance. It would go more neutral at that point, and potentially a failed breakout attempt up there would be the next thing to watch for in the bigger picture. So when I look at that, I kind of go back and then I do the same thing on this lower level, and I say to myself, okay, well, you know, we broke out of this range, right? And we pushed up, and now we're pushing back down into this range, and it should hold, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, I'm giving more benefit to the doubt on the buy side than I guess maybe you are right now. And I'm not saying that I'm taking longs, but I did attempt to get long this morning in the pre-market session on this level, because this level to me is really important. And I didn't get the fill I wanted, so I just kind of canceled the order for now. Because what I'm thinking is this, is that, if this market is going to go down, what I would expect it to do, since this area is like a key support zone for this big breakout right there, and I would expect buyers to defend this area, what I would need to get short is for it to break this area, right? And if it's going to break this area, it's not going to break this area by going like this and dribbling and dribbling and dribbling and dribbling and dribbling and through it. It isn't going to happen that way, I don't think. My expectation would be it needs a running start. So what's going to have to happen is it's going to push up, and then it's going to come down with much more velocity into this area to try to break this zone. What it did here, if you can even see it, you can even notice it when you kind of look at the delta on the short-term level at this, at least on the S&Ps, is the selling dried up down here, okay? And then it kind of did a U-shaped reversal. And so I'm not saying I'm overly bullish, but we did trade a lot of volume down here. It is the first test back into this range, the most likely one to hold. And so I'm going to expect that if this range is going to break, the first thing it's going to need to do is push up and show that the sellers are really in control.
Right.
I don't want to just get short any kind of minor pullback. So I at least need to pull back to the mid, and something like that for it to really break. The other alternative would be, if I'm going to get short, I'm going to get short from the mid. The alternative would be is if right off the bat you get an open drive that just slices through this area and gets probably going to support the mid gap area, get some sort of a bounce, and then just flushes. Because then, obviously the targets are going to be this 94 level and below. There's an open gap down here. There's a couple of things we could be targeting down here. But again, I think that because this is the first test, it's important support. We've traded a lot of volume here. We're starting to head higher in a very meek way. That's going to encourage more people to short this right off the bat. So I'm just going to watch and see where we get a decent pullback. A decent pullback to me would correspond with the mid, would correspond with this little high there, these lows. And if it comes back into that range and can't support and starts to push down, then I'd be more interested. But this is pretty critical support for the bulls. And I think that since they've been in such support, since they've been so strong over the longest time period here, I'm going to give them a little bit more a benefit of the doubt.
What do you
And
think
if it
about the
just,
fact that it's not like a V bottom coming off of that really strong move? That it is kind of a, as you said, the sellers backed off and then it just kind of wiggled, and it's moving up meekly. What do you think? Do you think that you have a hypothesis on if what that means on the strength of the support?
well, to me, what it means is it encourages people to sell.
Mm.
I mean, this is one of the things that I think happens sometimes when we're in these types of markets, is that everybody knows we're high. Everybody knows we're stretched. Everybody knows it's expensive, right? And when they see these small, meek moves higher, initially they start to sell them. Like this day, like this is a good example. Oh yeah, moved up and then it closed low, and then it kind of balanced and didn't do much, and then it's just eek, 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 and all of a sudden, boom, it goes, right? So this kind of a low encourages more people to get short, in my opinion. And when it does that, I just want to be cautious, because I think, I don't know that this little decline takes the bull picture off of the page just yet.
Mm-hmm.
If we break this low, yeah, then I'll be looking at it differently. If we fill this gap, and on the bigger picture, definitely, there might be more downside. But this doesn't look weak to me. This is the kind of thing that might just go like this, test in the real time in the RTH session, and then V bottom off of there. And if you do the, you're a Wyckoff guy, so what would that look like? It would look like accumulation followed by a spring,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yep.
I'm not a Wyckoff expert, but I did
No,
read the
I mean,
book.
that's exactly it. That's exactly it. You just want to see low volume. You want to see a push, pace of bid, exhaustion, and then boom, it just bounces and it's gone.
Yeah. So I'm just aware to be careful short without seeing something real time. And that doesn't
Yes.
mean I can't short right here for a move back down into the support level. I might do that. But
I think you're
the bigger
right. It's
picture,
going to be difficult to short off the open. Even a strong move off the open is going to be difficult. It's certainly going to be difficult for me to short. My momentum indicators are set up long at this point, so there's not going to be an easy way for me to get short. I'm going to have to see some sort of impulse pullback in order for me to go. I think also you're seeing the same thing. Not only in the price structure, you're seeing that is going to be a challenging trade at best, where there is
yeah,
going to be
I
a
can
two-way
see,
auction at least. And for sure there will be one.
you're right. And I can see this area being very tricky to short, like very tricky. Um, like this zone was yesterday.
Yeah, exactly.
You know,
Yeah, it'll be
where it
In fact,
goes
that's a good one to bring
into
up.
it goes into it, and then it comes back, and then your short is destroyed, and then it looks really terrible, and then boop, it goes like that.
Hmm.
So I just don't want to be shorting in this zone.
I think if
Please
you're
don't
going
let
to
me
get
short.
on the short early, you have to get on it on the very first signal. Because that's where I screwed up yesterday. I didn't take the very first signal. I missed it or whatever, wasn't prepared, doesn't matter. But I didn't take the very first one. I took the second one and then I got stopped out and then missed what production there was to the downside. So I think if there is a short to be taken, you got to take the first signal and it's either works or it doesn't, and then you got to let it play out.
If I was to design the best short that I would feel comfortable taking, it would go like this. It would go down in the morning, come back up, balance in here, kind of weakly push up into this, make a little spurt, push through the mid, come back down through the mid, and then we get an impulse lower. It needs a running start to get through this, I think.
Mhm.
Like it needs a little bit of momentum. We're going to need a position to squish. And I think that would be a perfect kind of a setup. If we can get that, I would take that type of short, especially if we push through the mid and I get to short it on the way back through the mid on the downside. That would be my perfect scenario. So just make that happen.
Yeah, you got it, man. I'm sending the
All
carrier
right.
pigeons now.
Okay, good.
Okay, well, cool. I would say that's it for this.